Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm Lisa Waldner. I'm an associate. I have to think about that. I just started a new job a week or so ago. So I'll tell you more about Associate Vice Provost for Student Achievement, and I'll be leading our team of academic counselors and disability resources and some other folks this upcoming academic year. But before we get to the two main points that I want to share with you today, I'd like to introduce you to our brand new College of Arts and Science Dean. The College of Arts and Sciences is where I'm from, so I'm very passionate about CAS, but more importantly, every student can't graduate from St. Thomas without spending significant time in the College of Arts and Sciences, and we really want to help create that well-rounded individual. So I'll give you a few moments with our brand new dean.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. I have three children, all of whom have gone to college. And so I remember very distinctly the position that I was in, that you're in right now. And I understand very much how you must feel. There's a lot of bittersweetness, I imagine, a lot of emotional attachment and feelings of sadness to see your children going off to school, but also incredible excitement about the opportunities and things that they're going to experience going to college. And that's something that I definitely went through with my kids, and so I understand completely where you're coming from. I'm here to say that the College of Arts and Sciences is comprised of faculty and staff and administrators like myself, whose primary purpose is to ensure that your students have a great experience. So we're here for your students, and that's our primary reason for life, is to work on their behalf. And so I just want you to understand that. And the second thing I just wanted to say really briefly is thank you. Thank you for all the hard work you've done preparing your children to be students at the University of St. Thomas. I'm really grateful that they're coming to join us, and I'm really looking forward to seeing them around campus in the coming semester. So thank you very much for being here.
Okay, so I would rather be on the floor with you all, but they're making me stay on the stage. So the good news is that I get really excited when I talk and I start to spit, so you won't have to deal with any of that. I'm here today to basically share a couple of messages with you. So I have been at St. Thomas for 21 years. I'm a professor out of the sociology criminal justice program. And I've been an associate dean for the past 7 years. And as I said, about a week ago, I started a new job as the associate vice provost. And so some of the folks I'm going to talk about today, academic counseling and disability resources, those are folks, that staff is part of my team that I'll be leading this upcoming year. So I've already partnered with them in my role as associate dean. So a lot of what I have to say today is kind of based on those 21 years of being a professor, being a department chair, an associate dean, and now this new role. So two main reasons, two messages I want to talk about today. One is just to ask you to partner with us in reinforcing some messages with your students. And so I'll spend some time on that. And then the second reason I want to talk to you today is to give you a little bit more background on how we are building your students' schedule. So students will leave today with a schedule of their courses for fall semester, hopefully a schedule that they won't need to change, but we'll talk a little bit about the mechanics of that as well. So we'll start with the messaging. I really mean it when I say that I want us to partner together. You have been, for the past 18, 19 years, you have been the main advocate and the primary driver of the decisions that your son or daughter have made. And you were an important part of that decision to go to college and an important part of that decision to come to St. Thomas. And I would just ask, though, at this point, that you might scoot over and not be in the driver's seat anymore, scoot over to the passenger's side of the car, or if you're like me, be that annoying backseat driver, but let your child take the wheel. Let them be the primary driver of their education, and let them know that they're responsible for their education. Now, that doesn't mean that you're unimportant, and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be asking really important questions. Questions like, you're going to major in what? My parents still don't really understand what a sociologist does. They think it's some combination of a social worker / psychologist, and I guess that's okay. But they didn't ask me that question, you're going to major in what? They were just grateful that I was going to college. But you get to ask that question, you're going to major in what? And more importantly, what are you going to do with that major? You know, if you're majoring in accounting and engineering, nursing, there's a very clear career path going forward, at least for the first 5 to 7 years of your students' post-college life and employment. When students major in things like sociology, psychology, history, music, just to name a few, sometimes it's not so clear where is that taking you. And it's not too soon to support your student in the passion that they have and support their decision for a major, but get them to think about, how do I monetize that? How do I explain those curricular and post-curricular experiences? How do I turn those things into lines on a resume? How do I turn those things into answers in an interview so an employer will want to hire me? So it's good to ask those questions. Do encourage your student to take advantage of the many, many opportunities outside of the classroom. I'm a professor, so I believe what happens in the classroom is extremely important. But in my last 7 years of partnering with the Dean of Students Office, Campus Life, academic counseling, campus ministry, and so on, I have come to realize that there are very equally powerful experiences that happen, learning experiences that happen outside of the classroom. But because I'm a professor, I want to emphasize some of those academic experiences. Encourage your student to do an internship. They can do that while they're at St. Thomas and have that count towards their degree. Encourage your student, if they're interested, to take advantage of student-faculty research collaboration opportunities. One of the things I'm most proud of is our summer science program, where we have students over on South Campus working with math professors, actuarial science professors, geology professors, biology and chemistry, etc., working on research projects. Students will present those projects at the end of the summer in a poster session. Some of those students will go on to present those projects at conferences with their professors as co-authors, and some of those students will get to publish their research in an academic journal. That is a powerful learning experience for a student who wants to go on to graduate school or wants to have a more research-intensive job. Now, that's not for everyone, but there are other outside of the classroom experiences. So another one I want to quickly talk about, if you'll indulge me, is study abroad. And the study abroad folks will be at our information fair today, so there's plenty of opportunities to talk with them about different opportunities for your student. But I want to take 30 seconds to plug a program I'm particularly proud of. I guess I still feel like I'm part of the College of Arts and Sciences, so I want to talk about our Rome Empower program. So a year from now, you could be, a little bit more than a year from now, let's say a year and 6 weeks from now, you could be bringing your student back to campus, helping them move back into Tommy East or Ireland or whatever residence hall they're living in. Or for the same amount of money, you could take them to the airport and drop them off to fly to Rome and spend a semester in Rome living at our Bernardi campus, taking 4 classes that count towards the core. And the reason I get to say it's for the same amount of money as coming to St. Paul in the fall is because we give every single student accepted into that program a $2,000 study abroad scholarship to help them get to Rome and get back and pay for some of those incidentals like toothpaste while they're living in our Bernardi campus. So if you have an interest in that, come bring your student and meet with me today. I'll be in the academic info fair around noon, from like noon to about 11:30 to about 2 o'clock today. And I'm happy to talk to you more about that Rome Empower program. You heard from our president today, who talked a little bit about student clubs and how many we have. If we don't have a club that your student is interested in, they can start one. We have all kinds of clubs for all kinds of different things. Some are academically based, and some are based on hobbies or interests or sports. We know a little bit about what leads to student success, and it's about students feeling like they belong, feeling like they're a part of this community, and feeling like they've made connection. And while I hope they find connection in lots of different places with their professors, with staff, with their classmates, another place to make connection is with other fellow students who share similar interests. The other thing about student clubs is, if you think about it, They're a great source of lines on that first resume. Clubs need presidents, they need treasurers, they need marketing people to get people to join their club, they need social media people. Those are all experiences that translate well to a resume, to lines on a resume. Please encourage your student to stay on campus on weekends. If they're a commuter student, to not just hop in the car and drive home, but stay on campus after class and take advantage of campus activities and campus clubs. Encourage them to become involved in campus life. I know a lot of students like to go home on the weekends. I went to college a long time ago, and I'm not going to tell you how long ago it was. And I loved going home because my parents would spoil me. They would fill my car up with gas. They would take me shopping. They would do all sorts of fun things. I got to do my laundry. But the real issue, though, is that when you do that, when you go home all the time, you're not taking advantage of campus. You're not learning about the neighborhood. You're not getting to meet people. We have perfectly good washers and dryers here on campus. They do not need to go home to do their laundry. So encourage them to stay here, at least for the first couple of weeks, and get to know the neighborhood and our community. Encourage your student to expand their social network beyond high school and make new friends. I will admit to you that when I was picking colleges to go to, that I ended up going to the one where more of my friends were going to. And that was important to me because I was a first-generation college student and I didn't know what I was doing. And having friends made me feel less anxious. And that might be true or not true for your student. It's nice to have built-in friends when you're here, but we have students from 48 states and 78 different countries. What a wonderful opportunity to meet people that are different, that are unique, and can help expand your worldview. When I used to teach the senior seminar in the sociology program, I would bring alum back to talk to my class. And those alum didn't know each other, and they came on different days, and they were from different cohorts, if you will. And there were two pieces of advice that they gave every single time to my students. And the first one was, please keep in touch with your friends that you make in college. They are your own personal Tommy network. The second thing they said, we've already covered, join a campus club. Those experiences really work well when you're trying to get your first job. Please encourage your student to visit professors at least once during the semester during office hours. Office hours is one of the most underutilized resources on campus. We put those hours in our syllabus. We're even willing to meet with students on Zoom, and oftentimes we hold those hours and nobody shows up. Now here is where I again really show you my age, and you don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to. How many of you remember those Maytag commercials from the 1980s? A few people are admitting to it. Maytags are great. They're great washers. They're great dryers. They're so wonderful because they never break down. And our proof is, look at our very lonely Maytag repairman. He is so lonely. The guy is sobbing. He's so lonely. He's got nothing to do because nobody needs their Maytag repaired. I would argue that professors during office hours are lonelier than the Maytag repairman. And I'll tell you another little secret about professors, if you haven't already figured this out. You know, we're kind of an interesting breed, personality-wise. A lot of us are introverted. We like books. We're okay being alone for hours at a time, talking to stacks of books. Your student would do us a real favor if they came by during office hours, because it might be our only adult conversation of the day. Seriously, coming to office hours, it shows interest in the course, shows your professor you care, but more importantly, it could be the start of a fantastic mentoring relationship. And what I would wish for each and every one of your students is that they find a mentor, at least one mentor, while they're here on campus. That can be a faculty member, it can be a staff member from the Dean of Students Office or Campus Life. But when you come to office hours and meet a professor, and if that develops into a mentoring relationship, that professor can help guide your student while they're picking classes for their major. They might say, hey, I just got an email about this great internship opportunity that would be perfect for you. More importantly, that mentor can serve as someone who writes a letter of reference for that first job, that application to medical school, law school, or graduate school. And we all know the best letters of reference aren't just things that recite facts. You know, this student took 4 courses from me, and here's the names of the courses, and this is the grades that they earned, and here are the skills that they developed. That's all really important information, but the best letters of reference show that the professor got to know your student as a person. They know their character. They know their passions. They know their interests. They know what their capabilities are. And the only way we can get to know your student like that is if we have a relationship outside of the classroom. So office hours is a good way to initiate that. This isn't rocket science. We really like it when your students come to class regularly and be attentive. I had the most demoralizing experience as a professor last spring. I was teaching my social statistics course for sociology and criminal justice majors. Now, if you know anything about social science majors, and I am overgeneralizing here, they are interested in people. They're not so much interested in numbers. And my students are so scared of numbers that we can't even call the class statistics, we call it sociological analysis. So I'm teaching this class, and it's last spring semester, and so we still don't know where this pandemic is going, and so I had put in Zoom links for every class period, and I instructed my students, only use them if you're sick. Well, you know what happened. A lot of them said, it's just easier coming to class on Zoom. So I come to class one day, I have one student in the classroom. One student. Everybody else is on Zoom, cameras turned off. I'm looking at blank squares. So I'm like, wow, this is tough. I'm really demoralized. I don't say that. But I teach the class as best as I can. I try to connect with everybody, which is really hard when you're staring at blank cameras. And towards the end, I finally just said, look, this has been really tough today. There's only one of your classmates is one person here, and everybody's got their cameras turned off. They very sweetly turned their cameras on, waved at me, and said, thank you, Professor. And that was being attentive, and I appreciated that, and their professors will appreciate that as well. Encourage your students to read those class documents carefully and ask questions. So we might have 30 sections of Art History 150. And we might have 6 different professors teaching those sections. And while art history will have the same content in all 30 sections, the assignments are going to differ a little bit. And professors have a lot of autonomy over their classroom policies. And so things that might be okay in one class might not be okay in another. And I'll give you a quick example. So going back to that statistics class that we can't call statistics that I teach, because I'm used to dealing with social science majors, some of which don't really care for math that much, I try to work a lot at easing anxiety around working with numbers. And so one of the things I do is I encourage them to work in groups to do their weekly assignments. I'm okay with that. I don't consider it cheating. I don't consider it academic dishonesty. I encourage them to do it, and for some students, that's a way to make friends, make connections, and have a built-in study group as they're preparing for the exam. In other classes, a professor might feel that it's very important for a student to show their own independent work, and will say to a student, you may not work with others. This must be your own work. And so in my class, I'm fine with students doing the weekly assignments together, not the exams, but the weekly assignments together. That wouldn't be okay in another professor's class. So if you read a lot of the academic integrity situations that I've dealt with as an associate dean in the College of Arts and Sciences were things that could have been avoided if the student had read the assignment carefully, read the syllabus carefully, and then clarified with their professor any questions that they had. Coach your student to approach professors early and often. November 16th is the last day this fall semester that a student could drop a class. Why am I bringing that up? Because occasionally I have to have a conversation at the end of the semester with the student and parent about a class that didn't go so well. And when I have those conversations, I always ask the student 2 questions. I ask others too, but these are the 2 that, I ask always. And one is, when is the first time you realized you weren't understanding the material or you were struggling? And the student will respond and tell me about when that happened in the semester. And then I'll say, well, when was the first time that you talked to your professor about it? and they often will say some version of, well, you know, I went to talk to them on November 13th because November 16th is the last day you can drop a class with a W. That is too late. Now, for those of you that don't know or don't remember, a W is it's a grade of withdraw. It shows that a student attended a class but didn't finish it, and it has no impact on the GPA. So students sometimes will go talk to professors about, I'm not doing well, do you think I should drop it? And that's a conversation they should have if they need to. But it'd be far better if that student went to that professor the very first time they didn't understand something that the professor said in class. The first time they read something they didn't understand. The first time they got an assignment or a quiz and they didn't score as well as they thought they should have, or they didn't understand what they were doing. So professors, that's what those office hours are for. If they're afraid to raise their hand and ask those questions in class, that's what those office hours are for. So students should approach professors and ask questions. No professor will be upset that somebody came to them and said, I don't understand what is going on. So please coach your student to do that. Please encourage your student to take advantage of the many student support services. I've partnered a lot with Campus Life, the Dean of Students Office. My point is, there is a campus full of caring adults that will help connect your student to resources if needed. Don't doubt that, and please ask your student to reach out. I mean, you guys are paying for these things anyway, right? Every student has access to the Center for Wellbeing. If they're stressed out, if they're having trouble with test anxiety or stress or depression, Center for Wellbeing can help them. If they're struggling with how to study, I've got an academic counselor who does coaching with students on how to be successful academically. So those are some examples of support services. To spend maybe a minute on academic assistance services, we have academic counseling. We have disability resources. Almost every department has a tutor for those intro-level classes. There are psychology tutors. There are tutors for theology, philosophy. We have the Math Resource Center. We have the Writing Center. We have services to assist your students and support them in their learning, and that's all part of the package that you're getting. Please try and let your students solve their problems first before you step in to assist. As a parent of 3 children that all went and graduated from college, every single one of them called me up on the phone and complained to me about their professors, every single one of them. And because I'm a professor myself, I was in a little bit of a unique position where I could coach them, but it's not rocket science, and you'll be able to, because it's common sense. So I would listen, and I would be sympathetic, and occasionally I'd even be like, yeah, that person's kind of being a jerk, right? I mean, I might even acknowledge that in talking to my son or daughter, and I might even say, well, that's not how I would have handled it. But what I tried to do was give them ways, give them action items, things that they could do to try to make the situation better. And sometimes that was telling them, you are actually part of the problem. Now, they don't like hearing that, but sometimes it was true. I'll give you a really quick example. My youngest daughter graduated from college, and she was an English major. And by the way, she does not live in my basement. And in her senior year, she was in a class with a professor who was known to be very rigorous. And she was to write her senior thesis. The first thing she does in his class is she picks the topic for her paper, her senior paper, and she picks the novel Moby Dick to write her paper on. Nothing wrong with that novel. I can't say I've read it myself. I've read other things, but I haven't read Moby Dick, but I do hear it's a bit of a challenge. But she picked that because she likes Moby Dick. She found out, or she knew at the time, that this was her professor's dissertation topic. You never, ever, ever pick your professor's dissertation topic. And had she told me that, I could have steered her in another direction. But the reason why she called me very upset, and this is the one and only time I was tempted to contact her professor, she felt he was picking on her. Well, the truth of the matter is, this was all her fault. She went off her ADHD medication, so she was being her normal, chatty, not focused self. And so she said to me, well, he's picking on me. It's like, no, she's talking while he's talking. He's just trying to get her to shut up, right? I mean, she's disrupting his class. And he sees her as being very disrespectful. Now, he didn't know that she was on ADHD medication. She had never told him that. So I basically said, you know, this is partially your fault. You need to march into his office and apologize and tell him your situation. So she did that. Did she get an A in the class? No, but she did a lot better than she would have. She got through it, she passed, she graduated. A year later, she calls me up. It's actually about a year and a few months later. It's about this time of the year. She calls me up, and she's in this really happy mood, and she's telling me about a car accident she just had. She caused it, by the way. She rear-ended somebody. And I'm not understanding, why are you so happy about a car accident? And then I realized she's happy because she solved the problem herself. So Angela Duckworth is a psychologist who's made a living talking a lot about resilience. And one of Angela Duckworth's things that she says in her book about resilience, and some of us call it tenacity or grit, determination. It's not anything you're born with, and you can't buy it. You get it through facing life's challenges and rising up to meet them. And so what I'd wish for every one of your students is, if they haven't already had some adversity, they'll face them in college as they try to grow and stretch themselves. And while you're not, hopefully you won't come in and solve the problem, you give them the reaching hand, help pull them up and dust themselves off, and help them face those challenges. Now, I do understand that there are times you do need to talk to us. You might need to talk to your student's professor. You might need to talk to their department chair. You might need to talk to an associate dean or a dean. You might need to talk to me, and that's great. We want to talk with you. We want to share with you what we know. We cannot talk about your student situation without getting a signed FERPA form from them. So FERPA is Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. And it just basically says that now that your child's 18, they have rights, and one of them is to decide what can be disclosed about their educational records. So I know sometimes parents think we're hiding behind FERPA. We're really not. We want to speak with you, but we have to make sure we do it in a legal way. And I do get where you're coming from as a parent. When I wrote that check, FERPA? Who needs FERPA? I'm writing the check. But that's not the way it works. So, we have that form on the registrar's website. Your student can download it, sign it, and email it to their professor, and then or whoever you need to talk to, and then you can have that conversation. So let's talk about registration. That's probably the more interesting thing that you're interested in today. How are we building your student schedules? So you can see Susan Anderson's contact information. She's our Director of Academic Support and Compliance, and she heads a team of academic counselors as well as disability resources. So you might have watched your student do part of our registration readiness course that we asked them to do on Canvas before they came today. So we gave them all the ins and outs of our Murphy Online system and how to register, so they were to do that before they came to campus today. And you might have seen this website, and you might have already gone and looked up some information. And this is a great place to go if you have questions after today. You'll also get to see, we have our sample schedules posted there that I'm going to share with you in just a minute or two. So prior to today, we hope your student did that registration readiness course, and we hope that they did their placement assessments. If your student is a science or engineering major, please, please, please make sure they took the math assessment. We need them to start math early, and we need to place them in the right math course. We also have assessments for chemistry as well as languages, and so students should do those. We preferred they do them prior to coming today, but it would be really great if they haven't done them, that they try to take care of those things soon. They also filled out a course preference form, and they told us some things about themselves, what they're interested in. We understand academic interests change. That's the whole point of college, but at least starting off with, what are you interested in? Placement, that placement information we talked about. If they've got previously earned credit, we don't want them taking a class where they've already gotten credit in high school. They've got AP exam scores coming in. If we need transcripts from some high school course that also counted for college credit, we ask them about that, because even if the transcripts haven't come in yet, we want to wait on that requirement and make sure that we're not having a student do something twice. And then other activities that might affect the fall schedule, things like ROTC, playing Division I sports, music ensembles, if they want to be in one, those will impact the fall schedule. So we ask about those interests. Today, they're going to first meet with folks in what's called a group advising session, where they're going to get some general information about kind of areas. So there's a session for students interested in social sciences. There's a session for students interested in business and economics. There's a session for students interested in engineering. They're going to get some information tailored to what are some things you want to make sure that you take your first semester. If you want to be an engineering major, this is what you should be taking this semester. And then after that, they're going to meet in small groups with a faculty registration advisor who's going to help them get registered for class. Now, this isn't necessarily going to be the person who's assigned as their academic advisor when they come in fall semester, but it is somebody that will help them get them registered and who's been trained to do so. I also want to remind everyone that because we need to make sure that we have spaces for everyone, for all students throughout the month of July, we hold back seats and we release them throughout the month of July to make sure that that student who comes to that last orientation session in July has the same opportunities of getting English or other classes they're interested in as students who come the first or second week of orientation. So let's take a look at those sample schedules. So this first one is called Emma's Exploring Major Schedule. So I like the phrase exploring major. We used to use the phrase undeclared or undecided, and that sort of sounds pejorative. It sounds like Emma can't make up her mind, or Emma doesn't have strong academic interests. Emma's smart, and she has plenty of interests, but she's not ready to commit to a major, and that's completely okay. So she's in courses that all will allow her to explore her interests and count towards our core curriculum requirements. So she's in English 121. She could also be in English 190. She's in French 211. She took a placement exam and placed into 211, and once she takes this French course, she will have met her language and culture requirement. Other students might have to take 2 classes, but because Emma placed into 211, she can take this class and be done. Theater for fine arts. We have a history requirement. Every student takes a history course. And then we have our 100 Foundation for College Success 1-credit course that all of our students take. So Emma has a schedule of 17 credits, and really anything from 12, 13 to 18 credits is considered a full schedule. Now here's Pat. I have a couple of different pre-med examples to show you. Pat loves chemistry. He wants to be a physician, or she wants to be a physician, or wants to work in the health field. Let's just put it that way. So this is a pre-med schedule. Notice that, like Emma, Pat is in an English course, 121, and Pat placed into chemistry, gen chemistry, and he or she is also in a lab, and then they're also in a biology course, and this is the Biology 207 is the entry-level biology for students who are science majors. So Pat is in Biology 207 with the lab. Pat is also signed up for math. They took a math assessment, and the assessment said that Pat could use a little bit more time learning Calculus 1. So Pat is registered for 108 this semester, and then Pat will take 109 in the spring. And once Pat finishes those 2 courses, they'll have the equivalent of our Math 113. Some students do benefit by learning calculus at a slower pace, and so that's why we have this option. And then we also have the 1-credit foundation. So this is a pretty heavy schedule. This is chemistry, math, and biology, all combined in one with an English course thrown in. Pat's going to be really busy, but Pat loves chemistry and feels confident that he or she can do it. So we have a second pre-med schedule for somebody who says, you know what, I don't want to be in math, chemistry, and biology all at the same time. I'm worried. I want to create I think that's too much for me to handle, but I'm committed. I really want to be a pre-health, pre-med major, but I'm going to take it a little bit slower. I'm going to start off with the English course that Emma also has. I'm going to take biology, and I love biology. I'm very passionate about biology, so I'm in biology. I also placed into the same math class as Pat did, but I've decided to hold off and take chemistry spring semester. So one reason Terry might be doing this is just saying, I know these courses are important for my foundation. I want to be successful, so I'm going to go into this a little bit more slowly. Terry might also be playing Division I sports that play in the fall and needs a little bit lighter schedule. Terry also could decide, well, I'm entering into my math and science a little bit more slowly. Terry could easily add a theater course or art history and take care of a fine arts requirement or take a social science course, etc. So Terry doesn't have to stay at 13 credits, but Terry might really want to invest in getting that good foundation in biology and in math. Betsy wants to be a business major. And I always am a strong proponent of, if you have a student who has a pretty strong interest, I think it's good for them to try to take something in their major or minor every semester while they're working through the core and before they declare that major. It helps students stay interested in college and the rest of their courses. So Betsy's in Business 100. This is a 2-credit course. A few years ago, the College of Business redesigned their business core and came up with 2-credit courses to give their students more variety and more flexibility. So Business 100 is required for business majors, so Betsy's in it. And Betsy's in Entrepreneurship 100, which is also a class that can work towards that business core. So she's got 4 credits in business, so she gets to explore that interest in business. She's in finite math. Unless she's a finance major, she doesn't need to be in calculus. If you're a psych major, sociology major, journalism, finite math is just fine as well. She's in Econ 251. She's meeting a social science core curriculum requirement by being in economics, and Econ is required for the business major. She's in Philosophy 110. Every single student will take our Philosophy 110, and then she's also rounding out her schedule with the Foundations course, so she's registered for 17 credits. Let's say at the end of the semester, Betsy says, you know, I thought I liked business, but I really hate it. I mean, I did that, right? I really wanted to be a history major, and I had a history class, and I hated it afterwards. Had a political science class. I hated it. You know, these are all, I don't know why. Maybe I was too immature at the time to recognize that you don't just make a decision based on one class about what your major should be, but I did. So I went through a few majors before I finally settled on sociology and psychology a really long time ago. But let's say Betsy does that too and says, I just don't want to be a business major anymore. Well, all the rest of her classes count towards the core. Those are all meeting gen ed requirements, and her business courses haven't gone to waste. If she just does the major, if she just does the core, she will not have enough credits to graduate. So Betsy needs 129 credits to graduate, and these 4 credits will get her to that total. What I'm trying to say is we've built in a little bit into the degree plan a chance for students to do some exploring, or to fit in a second major or fit in a minor. So after today, your student will not be allowed to change their schedule until August 2nd, and we need to do that to give a chance for everyone to register. After August 2nd, students can go in to our Murphy online system and make changes, and they can make those changes on their own. I would encourage you to have your student call academic counseling before they change their schedule. A student doesn't sometimes understand the cascading impact, and they take themselves out of a class and they don't get themselves back into another class. They could end up with just having a schedule of 9 credits. So I really, really want them to talk it through with someone before they make that change. There is legitimate reasons to make schedule changes. That might be a good thing to do, but they really should talk it through before they make that schedule change. So please ask them to do that. Finally, this is a little blurb from our academic counseling site, and you can see some of our academic counselors there in that picture. They also believe in their role in growing students and helping them learn and develop. And so their message here is just basically saying, we understand that as a parent, you may want to call and talk to us. We want you, though, to have your student call us. If you call on your own, they can't tell you a whole lot because you won't have that FERPA waiver, right? If your student initiates the phone call and you're there in the room or you're on speaker with them, then you can be there and you can be present and you can ask questions, but again, it's letting that student drive the conversation. So thank you for indulging me today. I will be at the academic fair in about 45 minutes or so if you have questions or want to talk to me. Otherwise, please enjoy the rest of your stay. Thank you.